This is another sign of the times, an analysis and a commentary. Federal Reserve has few options as U.S. economy falters. Lackluster jobs data and storm clouds on the economic horizon have not yet convinced Federal Reserve officials that growth is slowing, nor that they should respond. The Fed's chairman, Ben S. Bernanke, has said. Mr. Bernanke and a chorus of other Fed officials have made clear in public appearances over the last week that they are troubled by the decline in reported job growth, the escalating crisis in Europe, and the chaotic state of domestic fiscal policy. And who is the author of chaos and confusion? The officials, nearly united earlier this year in the conviction that the Fed had done enough to bolster growth, have been fragmented in their response to the news, with some pressing for the Fed's policymaking committee to act when it meets on June 19th and 20th. Mr. Bernanke said that Fed officials were now updating their economic forecasts ahead of their meeting. If they determine that the pace of job growth is unlikely to rebound, they would discuss whether additional stimulus is warranted. That's the essential decision, Mr. Bernanke said. Will there be enough growth going forward to make material progress on the unemployment rate? But Mr. Bernanke, who controls the decision-making process, gave little indication that he was ready to stick another needle into the economy. Economic growth appears poised to continue at a moderate pace over coming quarters, supported in part by accommodative monetary policy. Mr. Bernanke told the Congressional Joint Economic Committee an assessment that on its surface was little changed from its last public remarks on the economy in late April. He also acknowledged that unemployment remained at an unacceptably high level, and the government estimated that employers added only 69,000 jobs in May, a marked slowdown from the reported pace earlier in the year, and insufficient to reduce unemployment because the number of workers grew more quickly. But other economic data paint a somewhat brighter picture of recent growth, suggesting that the pace of job creation might increase without any additional action by the Fed, or so they say. Republicans on the committee pressed repeatedly for Mr. Bernanke to make a clear commitment that the Fed would take no further action to stimulate growth. I wish you would look the markets in the eye and say that the Fed has done too much, Representative Kevin Brady of Texas told Mr. Bernanke. Democrats, by contrast, inquired politely after the Fed's plans and showed surprisingly little interest in urging the Fed to expand its efforts. Representative Carolyn B. Maloney, a New York Democrat, made the nearest approach, calling on the Fed to act forcefully, but she did not ask Mr. Bernanke to commit to such a course of action, nor to explain why he has not done so. The central bank under Mr. Bernanke has held short-term interest rates near zero since late 2008, and it is said that it plans to maintain that policy until late 2014 at least. It also has purchased more than $2 trillion in Treasury securities and mortgage securities to further reduce borrowing costs for businesses and consumers. It could try a relatively modest change in policy, like announcing that it intends to hold short-term rates near zero beyond the end of 2014, or that it will extend an existing effort to reduce longer-term rates by changing the composition of its investment portfolio. Mr. Bernanke offered the standard affirmation that the Fed remains prepared to take action as needed to protect the U.S. financial system and economy. He noted that the risk of a European crisis, in particular, had intensified in recent weeks. Several other members of the Fed's policymaking committee have suggested in recent days that they do not see sufficient reason for the Fed to take additional action, in part because the economic outlook is unusually murky. Our crystal balls are much cloudier than usual, John C. Williams, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, said. Mr. Bernanke also resumed his advocacy for Congress to take a hand in lifting the economy through a combination of short-term spending and a long-term agreement to reduce the nation's debts. He said he would be happier if Congress would take some of this burden from us. The members of the committee, however, showed little sign of bridging the partisan differences that have largely paralyzed Congress. Both sides pressed him for details on what would happen without debt reduction, but Democrats sought his affirmation that the government needed new sources of revenue, while Republicans pursued an endorsement of tax cuts. In other words, kicking the can down the road. Mr. Bernanke humored neither side. I hope that Congress will work together to try to address some of those problems, he said. And this, too, is another sign of the end of times as we know them, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary changes, happenings, and events, because everything is connected and everything is numbered, and it's about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations. Daniel, chapter 12. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stands for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of troubles, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. 2. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. 3. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. 4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words, and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Revelation, chapter 11, verse 14. The second woe is past, and, behold, the third woe comes quickly. 15. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven, saying, The nations of this world are becoming the nations of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Again, it's time for prophecy to be fulfilled, and all these are more signs.